illegal, and that, this might be the first horse that's, anyway, we'll get to that in a minute. But anyway, just a little bit recap of last year. We talked about the winning horse was Animal Kingdom, and you may all remember, neither Michael and I put that in the category, probably won't win, don't like, and whatever. I mean, the horse had never raced on dirt in its life. It had a lot of things that it had to overcome. Well, there's a lot of quality horses in this race that if they win, they will break records that have stood since 1880, I think, Michael, and some of these, not racing, and we'll get into those nuances because it's a little bit of a different game. This is an incredible year. This is the deepest quality field that I can ever remember. There's one race, the Breeders' Cup Juvenile race last year had 9 horses that come out of it and won graded stakes earnings, and I think 7 of them from that race are in here, and it's that's unheard of. There was a day when it used to be if you won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, you had no shot of winning the Kentucky Derby. It just didn't happen. So everything's evolving, and those kinds of things are meant to be broken. But again, we'll go into as much depth as you want, and I'll hand it over to my co-worker.
Can I just ask you why wouldn't a Breeders' Cup winner have won the Kentucky Derby years ago?
The feeling was then, I think the first one to do it was Street Sense, right?
Correct.
Which was around 2005, 6, 7, maybe in there. The feeling was to get cranked up to win as a 2-year-old. I mean, remember, these are high schoolers. Yeah. These are not. This is the furthest any of these horses have raced. A lot of them will never race this far again, and to take a 2-year-old, which is a real baby, that's why they call them baby races, and get him or her so fired up that they win, it just took a lot out of them, and a lot of them just weren't sound enough to make it to the next year. Okay. That's sort of why they went to this graded earnings system, because they were getting too many horses that really didn't belong in the Kentucky Derby. But again, you'll never see another race that's going to have 20 entrants in it. It just, it's as rare as the distance is. So, there's a lot that a horse has to overcome. There's a lot of horses that won't win tomorrow or Saturday that might be the best horse. And then another housekeeping. Does that answer your question? Another housekeeping thing is, as Jennifer said, we wanted to provide you with either Bresnet or racing form with the post position and everything else, but for television, they moved it back to 5 o'clock today. So we've got all the past results, but as we go along, we'll tell you what post position usually there's somebody that gets really slammed by the post position. And I don't see anybody that it's a major factor this year.
You should tell them why the post position is important.
Yeah.
And what it post. You're assuming that people understand why it matters when it come out on the post.
As you can imagine, the horse that's, let's start at the outside, you're starting from the 20th position, you've got a turn coming up in a quarter of a mile, okay? So you've got to get yourself in position, and you've got 20 horses and you're way out in the middle of the track. So if you're speed, you've got to use your speed. If you're not speed, you can drop back and position yourself. But if you're a speed horse on the rail, if you're in the one, I don't know the last time a one horse won the Kentucky Derby with a saddle, because again, you've got 20 horses all trying to come over and get position. So if you're a speed horse, you got to use that speed to get out there, and you still got a mile and an 1/8 to race.
Yeah, in front of them.
So what's the best position?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah,
depends on what your tactical speed is. There's some horses that are in here. I didn't see where Optimizer was. I mean, did he end up in? Who ended up in the 1 hole? Is it Optimizer? I mean, that's a horse that's going to cut.
Optimizer in the 2.
Okay, that horse is going to come from dead last. That horse will be last most of the race. So being in the 2 holes, not that bad. But there's a lot of bumping, a lot of jostling, more. I mean, these horses have been in races where there's 8 to maybe 12 horses. Now there's 20, and everybody wants the same prize.
Wait, why is there 20? Because the others didn't qualify. Never before this many qualified.
No, they put auxiliary gates. In fact, one year didn't they go to 24?
They had, right, yeah.
That was ridiculous.
They cut it back to 20.
They cut it back to 20.
What is it about the Derby that does that? Just, that's.
Run for the roses.
Yeah, everybody wants to be in it.
Well, and we'll go through that again. You know, Michael will be talking statistics, and I'm going to say, you know what? I think this owner's here because he wants to have his box and see his horse in the Kentucky Derby. And then there's some others that are here that have disowned the race over the course. I remember the filly 3 years ago and shattered her legs as she crossed the finish line. Now, was that because of 20 horses? No, it was a horse that gave every inch of her, you know, being to winning a race, which is what they did. Anyway, let Michael get started, then we'll get to all these.
That was a great introduction. And I think it's important for us to keep it fluid too. There's 20 horses. If we sit here and talk about 20 horses in a row, I mean, we're going to have people sleeping on us. So what I would probably suggest is, you know, we have 3 horses on each page. What I would probably say is, well, you know, and at any point in time, this is a housekeeping, to the extent you want to ask a question, well, just interrupt us or do something, which is fine. But we'll probably do it every second page. We'll pause, and then we'll, you know, and then we'll move on. And they're just in alphabetical order again because of the way they drew the post positions so late today. We couldn't put them in the right order, so apologies for that. A couple of basic things. Why do people get all excited about the Kentucky Derby? And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the largest purse for straight 3-year-olds in the United States outside of the Kentucky Derby is $4 million. That's the biggest one I can think of outside of the Derby. For straight 3s.
What's that, 3 years ago?
Some of the prep races, Florida Derby, stuff like that.
Oh, you mean the total amount they can accumulate?
Right, the total purse
yes.
is $1 million. The Derby's $2 million.
Right.
So it's double the second largest purse. It also comes with prestigious and breeding, you know, elevation if you win the Derby. And rightly or wrongly, everybody's heard of the Kentucky Derby. You know, there is the Florida Derby, the Arkansas Derby, the Pennsylvania Derby, the West Virginia Derby, the Virginia Derby. You know, I can go on, the Santa Anita Derby. You know, you can go on and on and on. The San Camino Derby. There's a million, and Derby, do you remember this from last year? What does the word Derby mean? It's a race only for
3-year-olds?
3-year-olds. So today, when in the Kentucky, thank you, Angela, and when it's for 3-year-old girls, it's called the, anybody? The Oaks. All right, so anytime you hear the word Derby, it's only for 3-year-olds. If you hear the word Oaks, and there's the Kentucky Oaks is the day before, that's for 3-year-old fillies only. The fillies can go in the Derby also. So it's the biggest purse that's going to be run on Saturday, but I can tell you in some of the other stakes races that will be run, horses have run faster speed figures than the horses that will be running the Derby. The older horses. Older horses are generally better than young 3-year-olds. But it's the Kentucky Derby. It gets the biggest purse, it gets all the press, it gets all the hype. But it won't be the fastest horses running, I guarantee you, on the first Saturday event. But it's just...
So then, how does it rank relative to the Preakness and the Belmont Stakes? So just for people that, like, I have no clue, but I know the other names. So they're not all derbies, are they?
Mm-hmm. They all are, but they just don't use the word Derby.
They still use the word Derby.
But they're all for 3-year-olds.
They're all for 3-year-olds.
Okay.
Right.
And what it was, you know, this is the 138th running of the Kentucky Derby. You know, it wasn't until, I think, 1927, someone realized, you know what, you've got the Preakness, you've got the Kentucky Derby, you've got the Belmont, it's called the Triple Crown, and use that as a marketing ploy. Any horse that can win those 3 races. There are 3 different distances. This is 1.25 miles. The Preakness is actually shorter. It's 1 3/16.
Okay.
And then the Belmont is 1.5 miles. Like I said, a lot of these horses will never run 1.25 miles again. Most of the horses in the Belmont will never run. I mean, it's just not a distance that's run anymore. A lot of people think it's too much for a 3-year-old and too, you know, that's why there hasn't been a Triple Crown winner since 1979.
78.
Secretary?
No.
Secretary 73.
73. It was
78?
affirmed.
Affirmed.
I didn't realize that the 3-year-olds aren't the fastest horses. I figured that those 3-year-olds, because that's when horses reach their speed.
No, these are high school. They're now ready to go to college.
So why does it have so much prominence versus a race with older horses that are faster.
If you, I mean, gosh, we can take this as far as you want to know. But again, Kentucky is has been the traditional site of breeding and everything else. And this was, let's just call it it's like a debutante ball. You know, the breeders in the old days, you'd have, everybody would come out and here's our, Calumet Farm is competing against, what's another, the old.
Three Chimneys.
Yeah, so, some of the older farms that were, the Whitneys, the Vanderbilts, the Phipps, this was a spring meeting, it was, you didn't, then you went to Maryland, you didn't have year-round racing,
So it's tradition.
Yes, it's absolutely, it's all tradition.
So last interruption, what is the race for the fastest horses? And then we can move back to.
I would have said it's probably that turf, the Woodford turf.
You mean on Saturday?
On Saturday, that'd be.
Yeah, I
my
think the
guess.
turf race, that's a big race.
Older.
Whatever, do they have a race that's just the fastest horses?
I would have said the Breeders' Cup Classic.
Yeah, for this distance, and then there'll be a sprint race on Saturday, a 6 furlong race that'll be fast.
And that's the
So
fastest
how much is
horses.
6 furlongs?
Three-quarters
of a mile.
Furlong's an eighth of a mile. So this is 10 furlongs. Do you want to start by going through the?
Yeah, I mean, I have 2-sentence comments on everybody.
Would it be better if we did a horse at a time, or should you do 3 and then I do 3? Should we do horse at a time? You think is better?
Your call.
Just give us the top, great.
Yeah, really, who's gonna win?
Forget the rest.
Can I just say that I won here 1 year, the trifecta, under the
Superfecta.
superfecta?
We won the
Superfecta under Michael's
6
great
horses.
picks.
42
And
grand.
$25 was turned into 1,000 in about 20 minutes.
I can tell.
No, so I only gave 25 because he told me not to bet too much.
Jack?
It's your fault, Joan.
Yeah.
Your call.
All right.
All right, we're
All right,
done.
well, we'll start to bang through the horses, but again, stop. That's background. We haven't even got to the horses yet. Alpha,